Hi everyone, it's William with today's 1906 diary entry, and I'm beginning to wonder if I'm right about them being still at Ilinskaya. Dmitri and Maria and Ella, were they still there? Yeah, I don't know. I will talk about why I think maybe not, but I'm still not certain. So today we are up to the 17th of September, 1906. It's a Sunday, and let's dive right in. I got up in the morning, and looking out the window, I saw that everything, even the road and the roofs of the houses, were covered with snow. I had coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning, after which we went to church. After church, I went with GM to shoot my little rifle at a target, and then we even shot at crows. We lunched at 1 o'clock and then played tennis. I played extremely poorly. Tea was at 4:30, and then we rode the mules. Unfortunately, it wasn't as much fun as yesterday. The mules pulled frightfully, didn't listen, and it was very unpleasant overall. We're going to Sergeyevsky Lavra on the 24th of September, as we did before. Maybe this is sinful, but for me, it's an awful bore to go there. I don't know why Maria wants to go, but she was the one who reminded Totya that we go every year. And for me, I repeat, it's very boring, ! It's so uncomfortable there in those patriarchal chambers, and then the main thing is that I have no desire to pray. When GM and I went shooting today, Maria was angry at me for hiding it from her, but I didn't want Maria to know that I thought that Miss June would come with her, and then someone else, and then it would end up being a whole group, when I just wanted to be alone with GM. It will soon be the 21st. I hope I get good gifts. 7:45. Okay, that's his time these days, right before dinner, when he likes to write his diary entries instead of right before he goes to bed. And what is going on today? Well, here precisely is the reason why I'm thinking it might be Moscow, because he refers to the road and the roofs of the houses. And certainly there would have been a road or a drive at Ilinskaya, but were there houses within viewing distance of the main house? Maybe, there was the sweet house, so maybe. So that's flimsy evidence, but yeah, it's possible they were in Moscow. I don't know. So they have coffee at 9 o'clock. And that means that they will not be taking communion. At least Dmitri won't, and Maria and whoever else has coffee, because of course you fast from everything beginning at midnight on the Saturday until after you've taken communion. That's the Orthodox tradition, possibly the tradition in other churches as well. And then after church, he goes off with GM to shoot my little rifle. So I guess he had a rifle that was custom made for him, for the size that he was then. And boy, I can tell you, I would have put a stop immediately to that whole thing with the crows if I'd been there. I would have found a way to talk Dmitri out of it. I don't know about GM. I feed the crows here, and perhaps if he'd understood that they are one of the most intelligent animal species on the planet, that would have made a difference. I don't know. His son, Polilinsky, recalled as a child one occasion when his father was out hunting and hit a bird, and I guess the bird wasn't killed outright, and Dmitri was so upset witnessing its suffering that Paul said that he almost cried. And so I think he could have been persuaded not to shoot at the crows. And one interesting thing is that he doesn't seem to have been taken or to have gone or to have been keen on going hunting in general. There's not a single reference in any of these diaries to him going hunting. And when Nicholas goes hunting back in the earlier diary entries, he doesn't take Dmitri with him. So Dmitri certainly would not be opposed to hunting. He would do plenty of hunting as an adult, but it wasn't a passion of his, clearly. But he was being taught to shoot a rifle. He was having training in that, and he refers to that earlier on when he's back at Tsarskaya Selo, that he has rifle training. And this makes me a little dubious about something I heard of late, and Ed sent it to me. It was an excerpt from somebody's memoirs. I can't remember who, but this person had related that he had gone shooting with Grand Duke Dmitri, and that Grand Duke Dmitri had the most marvelous rifle that was the value of which was many times the value of his own sort of old rifle, but that Dmitri wasn't successful. He wasn't hitting the target or hitting whatever it was they were aiming at, and so he told this fellow, well, it's because of my rifle, and he asked the man to trade rifles with him. And so, of course, this man was laughing because he got this super rifle. And yeah, that just doesn't ring true to me. I mean, for one thing, Dmitri had received this training from the time he was a boy in shooting a rifle, and there were some times when he was an adult when he would go shooting with Nicholas, and also later after the revolution when he would go shooting. And as is always typical for him, when he does poorly at something, he always is very honest about that. And in fact, in this diary entry, he's talking about playing tennis extremely poorly, and it just seems to me that he was something of a perfectionist. And when he didn't hit the mark when he was doing any activity, whether it was golf or gambling or tennis or shooting or anything else, he always was quite hard on himself about that. And so I just can't imagine him, blaming his bad shooting on his rifle and not being aware of the fact that his shooting companion's rifle was not half the gun that his was. It just doesn't ring true. But I think it was probably something for this guy to tell his friends, about this sort of stupid Grand Duke. And there were a lot of people who had that attitude then, certainly now, but back then at the time that, Grand Dukes were kind of silly, vacuous, egotistical people, and that was true certainly of other Grand Dukes, but, why would Dmitri be so exacting on himself and humble about it in his diaries if that wasn't the person he was? So I could even conceive of him maybe looking for a pretext to give this man his rifle. He could undoubtedly afford to get another one. I don't know, but that's a bit of a stretch. Overall, I just don't see the thing as very credible. So this time it's not so much fun being on the mules. Maria doesn't fall off and give Dmitri cause to laugh, apparently, or maybe he was the one who fell off. But then again, when something like that happened, he was quite honest about it. So what he's dreading now is on the 24th, which is about a week away. The three of them are going to go off to the Sergiyevsky Lavra, not sure where the stress is. So a Lavra was a kind of monastery, not a typical monastery, but a kind of monastery where there were hermits and there were caves that the hermits lived in. So of course it was a whole monastery complex, and there was a church, and there were other buildings where non-hermits lived, but that is, I believe, the definition of a lavra. And this was I don't know if you could call any lavra ordinary, but this one, according to Wikipedia, was considered the spiritual center of the Russian Orthodox Church. And it was founded in 1337 by Sergei of Radonej, who would later be Saint Sergei. And Sergei is the old form of the name Sergei. And I'm not sure exactly when that changed, but yeah. So anyway, it was, it was really, really old, having been founded in 1337, and it was a fixture in Russian history. And in fact, it was where the Grand Dukes of Muscovy, before there was even a Tsar in Russia, but they were still royal, it was where the Grand Dukes of Muscovy were baptized, and their children and their, the members of what were then the royal family. And it was about 43 miles or 70 kilometers to the northeast of Moscow. And in addition to being the place where the original rulers of Russia were baptized and the center of their spiritual lives, it also had this very famous icon. It's in the iconostasis in the church there, and it's always been one of my favorite. And there's a whole Russian movie about the painter of this icon, Andrei Rublev. And within Orthodoxy overall, not just the Russian Orthodox Church, it's one of the most famous and considered one of the most beautiful icons. And it's just got a certain sense to it, a certain tranquility that people respond to, including myself. And so I'm going to try and show you that. It's on my computer screen. So let's see if that's possible. There we go. Let's see. And that's a chair made by my great-great-grandfather. Anyway, yeah, it's an extraordinary work. And in the Orthodox Church, the only way you can depict the Holy Trinity, the great Trinitarian mystery, is really at the heart of Orthodox theology. And the only way that you can legitimately, canonically portray the Holy Trinity in an icon is by showing the three angels who visited Abraham in the Old Testament and told him that he would have a son, even though his wife was, I believe, over 100 years old in that account. And yeah, they appeared to him, I think, not as angels, but he nonetheless recognizes that there's something different about them. And so they are, when you see them depicted in icons, those three angels, then it's really a depiction of the Holy Trinity. So, I wish Dmitri was, a sensitive and perceptive enough boy that he might have had some response to that. You recall when he talks about things like the plaintive cry of an owl, but he just doesn't like being there. So I guess it's not surprising that he doesn't remark on that in the church. And he takes it seriously to the extent that he says maybe this is sinful. I think earlier on in the diaries I thought maybe there was a little bit of sarcasm, but yeah, I'm not sure that was the case. And even looking later at the 1921 diary entries and his adult diary entries, it seems like he had enough of a conscience that it bothered him when he was, seeing these various, prostitutes, or just in general having sex with women from the demi-monde. It ended up depressing him. So he was raised in a very religious household. And that, Sergei had made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and Ella, of course, became a nun. So even beyond the fervent orthodoxy of Nicholas and Alexandra, this was a very religious household. And, naturally that had an effect to him, but, he was 15, and he didn't want to go to a monastery and spend the night, or however long they were going to stay there, in a monastic cell and be expected to pray all the time, because that's what you do in a monastery. And you eat very plain food, and you sleep on, a very primitive kind of bed. And yeah, you live at a monk. I've only spent one night in a monastery, and I stayed, in the guest quarters, and it wasn't uncomfortable, except that they wake you up at about 4 a.m. to go and join them for the group prayers. Okay, and Maria, to his exasperation, actually not only wants to go, but was the person who reminded Tyotia, Aunt Ella, that this was something they do every year, and that they were due to make that trip. And so, why does she want to go? Well, Dmitri doesn't know, and I don't know either. I'm surprised that was something a 16-year-old wanted to do. It's probably not something that I would relish doing, even at 58. So, anyway, I would love to see the Lavra, but I'm not sure I would want to, spend the night there. So maybe that's sinful on my part too. Anyway, what was I going to say? I just wanted to say that, if you want to get a sense of not only Dmitri's life, but the life that the Romanovs lived in the context of being Russian and Russian culture, and sometimes I think we allow ourselves to forget that they weren't Russian, that they were Russian, that they weren't just a cosmopolitan family, but some of them more than others were really steeped in Russian culture and life in Russia. I think most of them were. And in fact, people are surprised when I tell them that Dmitri wrote his diaries in Russian. They expect it to be English or French or something else, but no. And particularly, as I said, in his household, Sergei was a Slavophile, so he put emphasis on Russia's, the Russian culture and the life of the Russian people and Russian traditions. He wasn't a modernist, and as we could see, as we have seen in Dmitri's diary entries, especially as an adult, he was a modernist, but he always had that other side to him. And the other thing that I would note with this is that Dmitri and Maria were really, in several ways, raised differently from other Romanov cousins. So here they were in Moscow, so that put them, even to begin with, that put them from away from the rest of the imperial family. And of course, St. Petersburg, to which Tsarskaya Selo was attached, was the Western capital, and it had much more of Western influence. It was built to be that kind of city, that kind of European city by Peter the Great, whereas Moscow was ancient, and it was Muscovy. Before there was Russia and the Russian Empire, there was Muscovy, and it had the Kremlin, and being there, one was, and I suppose is, simply more steeped in traditional Russian culture. So, later on in his 1921 diary, Dmitri talks about this review he's going to in Paris, this review by a Moscow theater troupe, and how it has preserved the Moscow spirit. In his own words, the Moscow spirit, and he goes to it about 3 or 4 times. Okay, so then there's the shooting, and he wants to be alone with Georgy Mikhailovich. Maybe Maria liked to shoot, or maybe she just wanted to go on the outing. I mean, women did hunt, so it's possible that she herself wanted to shoot, but Dmitri didn't ask her because he wants to have some time with GM. So that's nice, considering the amount of tension that there has been between them in the past. It's nice that he wants to go out with GM. And in addition to wanting to be alone with GM, he doesn't want the little entourage that he thinks would inevitably come along with his sister. Other people would say, "Oh, they're going. Oh, okay, yeah, let's go." So yeah, finally, it will soon be the 21st. So what's happening on the 21st, where Dmitri is going to get gifts? Well, it will be his name day. It will be the feast day of Saint Dmitri of Radonezh, the Cossack saint. And he's hoping he will get good gifts. So it's kind of like a birthday, and we are going to find out what kind of gifts he gets and whether they're good or not. So definitely come back with that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.